So I did something really bad, which is to listen to people talk politics. Politics is about power. P stands for power, power struggles. And power struggles, there are no winners because it's one person wanting to squash the other. Now, something about the accusations against Israel. So I have something to say. There's so many people, I'm so happy to say, that adopt dogs and cats in Israel and take care of them. And I know there are people in Palestinian villages or Arab villages that do the same, but there's so few of them. And why is it? I thought a lot about it, and actually, for some crazy reason, the more religious you tend to be, the less you are kind to animals in a big generalization. There is something about religion that seems to suppress the love for animals, the love for someone who's different than you. You're supposed to love only someone who's very similar to you, another human being. You're not supposed to love a cat or a dog. You're supposed to treat them like objects. And this is not one particular religion, but I think most religions see human beings as the top of creation and animals as the bottom. And they don't see the unique gift of every living being. And I'm just studying Hasidism, and the ideas behind Hasidism are not the same as what I see is being practiced by a lot of Hasidics I see. So you're supposed to find the unique spark, divine spark in everyone and everything. And that's a beautiful idea, but I don't see it practiced. What I see in religion is mostly putting people in boxes and judging them. And that creates disputes and conflicts. And while Israel has 20% Muslims, there's the only Jews there are in Gaza are the ones they kidnapped. And this is a very sad fact. How come in Gaza there's not even one Jewish person who's not there because they are in the army fighting terrorists who have created a horrible terror training camp in Gaza, or kidnapped, taken against their will to Gaza? There's not one person there living out of their free will. And in Israel, there are Arabs that can leave. They can go to America, Europe, but they prefer to live here under under the Israeli flag, under the Israeli rule. They have a better life here than in most of the Middle East, because for some reason, and ask yourself why, there are more people coming to Israel than people leaving. But in other Arab countries, there are more people leaving. Every year, more and more people leave Arab countries and seek a better life in Europe or in America or elsewhere, Australia, elsewhere in the world. And there, they all of a sudden discover their identity in hating Israelis, in hating Jews. And not all of them, of course, God forbid, but for some reason, instead of teaching their children positive things so they can become champions, look around you. There are many, many, many more Arabs than Jews. Just numbers. It's over 1 billion Muslims. There's only 14 million Jews. And yet, the world champion, just this few months, just in the past few months, Jews especially have this trait that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Because just this past few months, since the horrific massacre in Israel, we have a world champion in windsurfing, a woman. We have a world champion in kickboxing, also a woman. And I think we have also world champion in swords. I forgot the name of this sport in English. In swords, and just I think almost every month, every week, there's another Israeli winning a gold medal, becoming an international champion. I don't see one Arab name, not even one, not even one. 1 billion people, no champions in sports, no champions in science, no Nobel Prize winners. Jews are 20% Nobel Prize winners. So did they steal those prizes? Did they steal those medals? Because that's what people will have you believe. The Jews are thieves. They steal things. They steal land. They steal honors. I've just heard on TikTok a woman who says she's an expert. She studied ancient world history, and yet she says the Palestinians have been living here for thousands of years. Then where's the proof? Where is the archaeological proof? Where are, in archaeology there are findings, ancient coins, ancient writing. Nothing. They lived here for thousands of years and yet left nothing. Nothing that indicated they were living here. Name me one ancient Palestinian king. And yet we have plenty of evidence that there were here Jews living here, coins, writing, and these are not things that were forged. Then let's look at Gaza, at UNRWA, UN refugee refugee agency that built that allowed under schools for terrorists to build their training camps and their terror tunnels, which were intended to destroy Israel. Instead of focusing on education, they focus on how to destroy the other. And there's a secret: if you focus on hating someone, you're not going to achieve anything. And that goes for on a personal level, on group level, and definitely on national level. All those people that focused on hating others, whether it's the Nazis, whether it was any kind of empire that sought to destroy people, they all disappeared. The only people that survive are people that strive to build something. And what's going on in Gaza at the moment is a destruction of a terror training camp and destruction of terrorists. And if you say, where is the compassion for the people? Where's the compassion for the Arab children that could have been easily hidden? I mean, those terror tunnels, they have all sorts of ways to survive beneath the earth. I didn't hear of one baby hidden in those tunnels because the Hamas didn't allow it. And these are the people that they chose. These are the people that they saw as their leaders, people who didn't think their children have a right to live. Israelis build bomb shelters, they build terror tunnels. Israelis teach their kids to learn science and to learn to become better people, and yet they teach their kids to hate Jews. They teach the children Hitler. The Israelis teach Albert Einstein, physics, biology, science, literature, music. The religion doesn't ask to kill others. It focuses on becoming a better person, while in Gaza they focused on destroying other human beings. So in which world are those people in Gaza freedom fighters? What are they going to free exactly? Hate? To unleash more hate? To murder every Jew in the world? This is their declared intentions. And this is exactly why they're so unsuccessful in every field. In every field. I'm not saying Arabs, God forbid, but I'm saying a culture that focuses on hating and destroying will never be successful. And this is why the Arab people who live in Israel and are Israeli Arabs, they are very successful, much more successful than any of their Arab family members or whatever living in the Arab world. Yes, there are Arab doctors and nurses and teachers, but if you see the fact that they aren't very successful compared to other countries, other nations, the answer is the culture that doesn't promote learning and love. When they do come from homes that promote love and being kind, then they are successful. But there's just only so far they can reach because the culture keeps preaching for hate, keeps preaching for destroying Jews, keeps preaching for destroying progress, keeps preaching to promote terror and to cheer it on. And it's really sad that the very people that say and claim they love Palestinians so much don't do anything for them. They just want to see them become more hateful, more violent, and more destructive. It's not freedom they seek, it's murder and abuse and racism. They call Jews racist, but how can we have 20% Muslims? How can we coexist and there are Arabs all around? You can't walk in the streets without seeing signs in Arabic, hear the Arabic language, and Arabs walk around here and work and live here as equals, while in Gaza they only live there as hostages, starved, beaten, raped, tortured, and eventually murdered, most of them. So I just don't understand how people can just lie and ignore the facts. The facts are, look who's winning the gold medals. Look who's progressing. Look who has the startup nation, only second to California in high tech. Who? And you can't steal clever ideas. You can't steal Nobel Prizes. You can't steal gold medals in sports. You can't steal literature or poetry or music. And where are the 1 billion Muslims? How come they're not as successful? And how come the only success they have is in being world leaders in terror and murder and violence? Why don't you ask those questions? Because I think people are asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking, what are the Israelis doing in Gaza? Why didn't you ask, what is Gaza doing in Israel? To Israelis, specifically to Israelis that helped them and made sure they get medical help. And right now, as we speak, the niece of the leader of Hamas is receiving help for her baby who needs help in a hospital in Israel because she has Israeli citizenship. So ask yourself, which Israeli received help in Gaza? They don't even want to help them get medication that they're supposed to get. And really, how can anyone believe the lies, the horrific lies being spread about Israel when just the facts speak for themselves? The terror tunnels, how much more evidence, despite being shown evidence, people still claim Israelis are just there since 48. Despite being shown evidence, they still claim Israeli are the terrorists, not the ones who built terror tunnels, not the ones who accumulated weapons, not the one who hid weapons in baby beds, and not the ones that the UN paid and they massacred Jews just because they're Jews, and massacred Muslims just because they lived in Israel, and massacred animals just because they lived in Israel. What kind of people are so vicious and violent? Is it freedom fighting to shoot a dog on a kibbutz? Is it freedom fighting to burn a home on with it the people living there? Is it freedom fighter to behead a baby? Is that what a freedom fighter does? To torture helpless beings? Is that what a freedom fighter does? And what do they expect the Israelis to just sit there and let them invade homes, burn people alive? Is that what they expect us to do? Well, there's an army, and unfortunately, since the people of Gaza did not rebel against their terrorist leaders, then they are now sadly in a situation which is not good. But they invited this situation. They called for it by invading Israel, by torturing people, by burning homes, by shooting people who have done nothing to them, who went to a party, who helped them. A woman who organized help for them was murdered brutally. They didn't differentiate between people who helped them, who gave them jobs, who tried to help them with every possible problem they might have, from medical to anything. They didn't differentiate. They just killed anyone, whether it's animal, whether it's a non-Jew, whether it's Thai, Muslim, Jew. They murdered anyone in Israeli territory. So what freedom is that? What freedom is it to target everyone? A baby, a Thai person, a dog, anyone was a target for vicious, violent invasion with an enormous amount of weapons. And they get medals for being the worst murderers, the worst vicious, violent terrorists on earth. This is what they receive awards for, and yet there are people online who defend them. How can you defend such people? How can you defend people who target anything just because it is in Israel? Or, if I or anyone crosses the border to Gaza, they would have been shot immediately. And yet people from Gaza were allowed to come and work because they can earn more money, they can have more opportunities, they can study, they can do a lot of things. But Israelis could never go to the other side. Israelis could never go to areas where they reside. And yet the Israelis are supposed to be the racists. The Israelis are the murderers, not the ones who declare they want to murder and do it, but the Israelis who have tried to help them and gave them jobs and gave them opportunities. They were the ones. It's all completely mixed up. It's all completely mixed up. The murderers are calling the victims murderers. The murderers, instead of progressing, are regressing. It's very sad, but the only fault is the fault of the people who invested in murder and terror instead of training. They could have been champions if they trained, but they just don't want to win medals in sports or in science or anything, or in literature. They don't want to write great pieces of literature or poetry or music. They don't want to make inventions, develop innovations. They just want to do a simple, vicious act of violence against other people just because they're different from them. And they don't have anyone in Gaza who has a different identity to them except to use them as help for terror. So they'll have Christians, but those Christians will be helping them hide weapons, will be collaborating with the terrorists. Because if you don't collaborate with the terrorists, you are killed by terrorists. And anyone speaking on TikTok or on social media for terrorists are just as good as the terrorists and are wasting a lot of time, their short life on earth, supporting the worst type of murderers known to mankind and womankind.